Hi guys, welcome to our first session on lead generation for virtual assistants. And today we're going to talk about measuring and reporting on your results. So let's take a look at our today's questions. First of all, we will talk about how to monitor the progress. Then I will tell you more about key metrics that are used to track your results and progress. We will talk about different types of reports and what is a lead magnet and why lead generators use it. And in the end, I will tell you about selling your services as a lead generator, how that can be done, etc. But in the beginning, let's remember our previous sessions and let's take a look at what are the responsibilities of a lead generator. So first of all, you should understand your target audience. Usually this information is provided by a client, but sometimes you have to find it out by yourself. Then you need to set clear goals and objectives. So what are the wanted results, what you would like to achieve, what your client wants you to achieve, and etc. So the amount of leads per week, per month, and other data. Then you should identify the channels where you can reach your target audience. There are many different possibilities like websites, blogs, social media like LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. So practically anything. If you feel that you can find your target audience on a specific website or social media, you can and you should use it. Of course, after that, you should find potential leads, and it's always better to systemize your process by creating a list of potential leads, the main data, the process, as we're going to talk today, and other important notes that might be relevant for you or for your client. And after that, you either give that list to a sales team, or you work with these leads to identify them, to implement lead qualification processes to actually find out if these people are interested in some service or product, or they require more nurturing, more follow-ups, more information, and something like that. And usually after that, you pass qualified leads to the sales team. There are different options in different companies. Sometimes it's about creating a list with information. Sometimes, which happens much more often, you should qualify these leads by contacting them and then giving them to the sales team where they start more profound work. And of course, always use personalized outreach. That's a core rule of the lead generation. So try to avoid the generic templates for every person as much as it's possible, because really easy to recognize. And of course, monitor and analyze your data, your feedback. There is always room for improvements. So let's talk about lead tracking status. So it's a system that helps you to categorize your progress with leads. So what are their stages, what is the progress, and etc. To track your lead status, you can use either Google Sheets or CRM tools. So with Google Sheets, it's easier because it's just a table where you can put all the information you have, but it can take much more time and effort. To avoid that, you can use special customer relationship management tools. Usually it's a system, so an app, software that businesses use to track the progress on their deals, on their clients, on their leads. So practically everything that is connected with sales. And sometimes if that system is really developed, sometimes it's also possible to track some marketing processes. There are actually many different CRM tools. For example, I personally used HubSpot or Pipeline. They both have their disadvantages and advantages. But the thing here with these customer relationship management systems, that they're usually provided by a client. So if your client have a specific system for such purposes, you can always, and you actually should ask for an account to be able to track your progress and to be able to show your client that you're working on a specific task that you were given. Usually these systems have some educational parts, so they provide an information either in text version or in videos that you can see, you can read and learn how to use these systems more effectively. So let's take a look at the example of such system in Google Sheets. So of course, you have the main information about your client, like contact name. It might also include the company name, the position, anything like that. Of course, the contact information, email, phone number, LinkedIn, if you work with LinkedIn. And then you have the information about your progress, like, for example, when you contacted that lead, what should be the next step? Like, should you schedule a follow-up call, send additional information, send follow-up, set up a meeting, or anything else that is possible. Usually, you mention the status of your lead, like, is it in progress? Is it new? Probably waiting for an answer and anything like that. And of course, notes. So usually you will have to write down some more detailed information on the lead, like what has happened, what will happen in the future. Of course, it's not set in stone and you can choose which parameters are more important to you or probably for your client. In CRM tools, there are usually different stages of the deal. So for example, you have a specific line with different statuses for your leads, like new, follow-up, second follow-up, then answered, in progress. Usually you can customize it according to your needs and wants, but mostly they also work like that, just it is possible to avoid all this management of a table by hands. And now let's talk about key metrics. Tracking specific key metrics is very important to understand how effective you are. So probably you should choose another option. Probably you should change your outreach messages. Usually, the effectiveness of your work is measured with lead conversion rate. So that's the measurement of how many leads were successfully converted into customers. So you can see the formula on a screen. You should, first of all, divide the number of conversions by the number of leads and then multiply it by 100. And then you will get your lead conversion rate. So for example, if you send outreach messages to 150 leads and then with 9 leads, you had a deal. So you decided that they were qualified enough, they were interested in a product or services, and you gave them to the sales team to work further. So 9 leads, and that means that your conversion rate is 6%. So if 9 leads were successful out of 150, that means you have 6% lead conversion rate. And actually, the good conversion rate can be very, very different. It depends on the industry, on marketing source, on average sales lengths, on the value of product or service. For example, if you are working with some complicated B2B product that is expensive, that requires a lot of time to be implemented because it's complicated, then the sales length, the amount of time you spend with one lead just for discussing different details, it can take about 6 months. Of course, if you work with something simpler, it will take less. But again, the good conversion rate can be very, very different. So here you can see an average conversion rate by industry. You see that the lowest rate, 1.8%, is in B2B e-commerce, when the highest conversion rate is in professional services, and it is 4.6%. But on average, the conversion rate is about 3%. It's not a lot, but unfortunately, the cold lead generation takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of people that you need to contact to get some clients. Let's take a look at some specific metrics for emails. So here you can see an example. Of course, one of the first metrics possible is the amount of emails sent. So how many emails you have sent in a week, in a month, or in any other period of time. Then you can also find or use such metrics as open rate or click-through rate. The thing is that it's impossible to count these metrics if you don't have any special tools. So if you send, for example, emails without any additional tools, you won't get this information. But for example, if you have an CRM system, you can send an emails through that system. There is such an option. And then that system will provide you with information, for example, how many people have opened your email, how many people have clicked on one or more links in the email, and then you can also get these metrics. Of course, the metrics, besides how many emails were sent, metrics that are available for you are response rate and conversion rate metrics. So response rate, how many responses you got. For example, 10% responses, which means that if you send 2,000 emails and you got 200 responses, you have a response rate of 10%. Of course, for example, you can divide this response rate as I usually do, for example, not interested, or later, or for example, interested in more information. So there are possibilities to choose what is important for you, because the responses can be very, very different. Like, I'm not responsible for that, please contact another person, or let's talk later, or probably the person is on vacation and you will get an automated email telling you that, hey, I'm not working right now, please call me later. And of course, the conversion rate is the amount of people, the amount of answers that were possible to convert in some action. Like, for example, the amount of people you have set up the meeting with. Usually that means conversion when there is some action and you have a meeting, probably not with you, but with the sales team, or you have sold a product or a service. That usually depends, the conversion rate, on the difficulty of the product, how complicated it is. Again, there are some product or services when it takes a lot of time to discuss all the details, to implement it with the clients to agree, because they require a lot of time and money. Then you can also have your bounce rate, the amount of emails that weren't delivered. Usually you can count them because usually you receive an automated announcement that the email wasn't delivered, but different tools also have that option when you don't have to count by yourself. And of course, the follow-up engagement. So for example, how many emails were sent and how many follow-ups after that you have sent. Then let's take a look at some LinkedIn metric. Again, you have the amount of messages you have sent. Usually the amount of messages like connection requests. Then there is an option, of course, very important data, how many connection request messages were accepted. That's an important metric when you work with LinkedIn, because you cannot just sell your product or services with connection request messages. These messages on LinkedIn are too short, just 300 symbols, and you should use them to initiate the contact and be able to proceed with conversation. So this metric, the connection request metric, is really important because you should always analyze your feedback. How many messages were accepted, how many people you were connected with. Probably you should change something in your initial message for it to be more effective. Then, of course, you have such data as response rate. So how many people responded to the LinkedIn messages, or how many people engaged with the LinkedIn messages. And of course, the metrics about answers. So how many people answered, how many people were not interested or asked to contact them later, or probably how many people asked you to send them more information because they're probably interested, but they aren't sure. And of course, one of the most important, probably the metrics that will be required from you most of the time, is meeting requests. So how many people were interested in meetings and how many meetings you were able to set up. Also, you can have other metrics like lead qualification rate. So how many leads were qualified. And of course, follow-ups. So how many follow-ups you have sent. Now let's take a look at cold calling metrics. Of course, the first one is how many calls you made. Then there is an important metric of a connection rate. So how many calls. Then, of course, you have such metrics as qualified leads generated. So how many leads were qualified? Because again, with a long list of cold calling prospect, it's not always easy to tell who is really qualified, for example, with their budget, probably with their decision-making abilities, and etc. And of course, conversion rate. So how many cold calls resulted in the generation of qualified lead? And of course, follow-up actions. So how many follow-up calls you made, and etc. But again, so in the majority of these cases, the main metrics is how many calls you made, or how many emails or outreach messages you sent, and what are the results. It's always better for you to actually manage your answers, because they can be different, to understand, for example, how many people weren't interested because they technically answered. So that means that probably your outreach messages were successful, but people aren't interested for some reason. Or probably they asked you to contact them later, which is a good thing, because it means that you can nurture these clients and they might become potential buyers in the future. And of course, this matrix is very important, because first of all, it's feedback for you to analyze how successful you are, and probably to think what should be changed. Probably you should change the script you use during cold calling. Probably you should change something in outreach messages or in emails. So you can always improve your conversion rates, and this data from these metrics can help you to understand how successful you are. And of course, we shouldn't forget about the necessity to provide reports to your clients. And this data is what usually is used in different kinds of reports. Usually, there is an agreement to provide a general report at the end of the week or month or any other period of time. Weekly and monthly are the most common options in that case. But you provide this information to the client to show, first of all, what is the situation. So probably they should also change something on their side, like realizing that their target audience is different than they thought it was. Or probably they should provide some marketing materials which would work better, and etc. And of course, that's a great tool to track your effectiveness and to show your work. So let's take a look at the report example. See, you have there all the data we have discussed with different metrics, like, for example, of course, time period, then how many prospects were identified, contacted, qualified, how many meetings, probably won deals, which means that they decided to buy the product, or that they just were given to the sales team. Depends on the arrangement between you and the client. How many leads were not interested? Again, all this information can be different in different cases. For example, sometimes it's more important to track how many people answered and what answers they gave you. Sometimes it actually depends on the wish of a client, what they want to hear from you. When I work in my cases, I usually provided reports with following information on a weekly basis, like, for example, how many leads I contacted, how many of them answered, and then what answers they gave. Like, for example, how many people say that they were not interested, how many people said that please contact us later, how many people asked for more information. Probably that's why it's always good to have some presentation, or probably one pager, which actually means that you have one page in PDF with the main information, very brief about your product or services. Probably you can send a link on the website. So it's always good to have a quick way to provide your potential leads, with some additional information about what you're selling, besides what you have written in an email. So again, usually you should discuss it with your client, because they usually provide their lead generators with such information from their marketing department, but there are still different cases. And of course, how many people agreed on a meeting. Now let's talk about lead magnets. So lead magnet is something valuable that businesses can offer to potential customers in exchange for their contact information. So there is always a question why we should use lead magnets. Well, besides lead generation processes, through cold emails, outreach on LinkedIn, or cold calling, as we have discussed. It's also possible to attract new leads by so-called lead magnets. It's some information, some piece of information that a potential lead can find on the website, for example, download by inserting their email, and then study. It actually gives a lot of possibilities. First of all, you get a contact information of potential lead, because when the person downloads some information about a product or a service, that means that they are somehow interested. And it's a good possibility that if you contact them, they will answer you. And it's actually very important. If you get information about person downloading a lead magnet and leaving their contact information, you should contact them as fast as it's possible. So when they still remember about visiting your website, about leaving your contact information, when they still remember about visiting your website and leaving their contact information there. So there are some examples of what lead magnets can be. For example, these are guides or ebooks with some information or a topic, so-called white papers with some interesting and valuable information regarding the product or service. It might be some template or worksheet, for example, something that the potential lead can use. For example, like you can download some templates on our website, but if you want, we provide actually a wide range of services that might make work even easier in addition to this template. Sometimes it can be webinars or workshop that provides an in-depth knowledge, or any other possible information about the product, like a presentation, a one-pager, a video with demonstration, probably a demo. Sometimes it's possible to find a demo that way by leaving your contact information, and then you will be presented with a video about the features, or probably a free trial, which also means that the lead is interested. Most likely that lead is qualified because they're looking for some options, and it's a good way to attract new leads. It's a good way to qualify them and, of course, contact them. So how to create a valuable lead magnet? So first of all, you should find the content that will be interesting to your audience. Again, a guidebook, probably a description of a product, probably a description of a specific feature of the product if you think that it's the most interesting part. Again, it can be webinar, it can be workshop, free trial, anything. But it should offer some solutions to specific problems that your audience faces. Like, it should be valuable. It should provide some interest, some value to the person that would like to download it. Of course, you should show your expertise, your knowledge in the field. By this lead magnet, it should be the best of everything, like why that product is valuable, what problems it can solve, how it can be helpful, why is it interesting, and what do you know about that problem, how you can help the person that is interested in a specific solution, service, or product. Of course, the design is very important when it comes to lead magnets because they aren't usually very long. So you should attract the lead by, of course, choosing the right design. And lead magnets often use different images or infographics, anything that can be seen and perceived. So let's take a look at some examples. So that's a lead magnet. Actually, as you can see, you can find them on many websites. They ask you to provide your contact information. In exchange, you will receive probably a discount, probably an information or a demo. So here you can download a guide to design and build your property. So, for example, if you get an email of a person that has downloaded that guide, there's a good chance that this person is actually interested in building or designing their home. And you can contact this person with this email, for example, to offer them additional services or additional information, or just addressing that, hey, I have downloaded our guide, probably you would like to learn more about what we offer. Another example of a lead magnet, for example, you can receive an ebook with recipes just by providing your email address. Again, probably that is a good advertisement and probably you would like to attract more clients that will be interested in restaurants or delivery services, or probably you offer other kind of services and you just show your expertise that, hey, we have recipes. Would you like to take a look at our range of services that we also provide? Because you can see that we are experts when it comes to food cooking. Another example of a lead magnet. So download your free email templates. Well, that's very necessary, for example, for lead generators, as we're discussing right now. And it's always nice to get some additional options from a professional like that. So this person, he says that, hey, you can download many options for email templates. It's good, it attracts attention, and then you will be taken to the blog, which means that you can subscribe because probably that person will provide you with more valuable information. He's an expert or they are an expert, right? You learn about them. And you can also use this information, for example, that download these templates by leaving your email address, and then you can contact these people and ask them, probably you need a CRM tool. Would you like to learn more about it? It comes with email templates and the possibility to manage your lead generation processes. So these are the main things about lead magnets. They attract attention. They provide potential leads with some important and valuable information, and they provide you with the contact information, which is always very important, and also with information that there is a person interested in some product or services. So you should contact them, again, as I have mentioned before, as fast as it's possible. And just remember about you, about visiting the website and being interested in this specific information. And of course, there are different ways to use a lead magnet. For example, you can place it on a landing page for capturing leads on the website, which is the most common option usually. You can also share the link in your messages or emails. Again, you share the link to the website. For example, you can download our guide here. Take a look, for example, in your outreach email where you can insert some additional information. Or you can feature it on your social media like Instagram or LinkedIn. It's always nice when you can show a lead magnet to as many people as possible, because the main purpose of a lead magnet is to attract attention and attract people interested in some product or service. Now, let's talk about selling services of a lead generation virtual assistant. So what do you need to have, or what do you need to do to sell your services? First of all, you need to build a professional online presence. Nowadays, LinkedIn is the main social media for professional connections. And it's very important for you to have a professional LinkedIn page. For example, with a photo, with a good photo that will look professional, with a description of your skills. You can actually insert it in description, or you can also mention them in a specific category, skills, that is placed in the end of a page. Actually, you can do both. So it's always better to mention as many skills as it's possible. And of course, you should highlight there your experience. It's actually very convenient. For example, where did you work? What did you do? What were your responsibilities, etc. But LinkedIn page is important because it shows the main information about you. It can be used to contact clients, contact leads, and etc. Of course, you should develop a compelling elevator page to tell about yourself, like what you do, what value you provide, and etc. Of course, create a portfolio, for example, with your lead generation work. Again, if you don't have any prior experience, you can use tasks that you have done during this course as an example. But later, when you will have more experience, you can and you should put it in your portfolio as an example that you're a professional. Here are the tasks you have accomplished. Of course, it's necessary to use cold outreach to identify your potential clients, like which companies will be interested in your services, which clients are looking for a lead generator. And you should reach out with personalized messages. As I have said, personalized messages is the key to the lead generation. So try to avoid as many generic messages as is possible, especially when it comes to looking for a job, because it should show your interest in cooperation with a client. As an option, you can offer a free consultation, for example, to arrange a meeting and then discuss the specific needs of a client when it comes to lead generation. So you can show your expertise, you can show that you can provide value to the client. Content marketing. Again, the LinkedIn page isn't limited to your profile, and you can interact with a valuable content on the platform. So by interacting, you actually can show your expertise, your knowledge, and etc. So for example, you can leave comments, or you can repost some interesting article or some interesting piece of information. So there is a tip that when it's possible, you shouldn't just repost it without any comments. If you can, repost it with some comments, like for example, you have found an interesting article and you think that it's really interesting. You can show your expertise that, hey, I know what I'm talking about. So you repost it by writing, for example, just found this interesting article about using, I don't know, that product in marketing. So just leave your comment. It's always better than just plainly reposting it without any explanation at all. And of course, build your network. Participate in different groups related to lead generation or the industry you serve. Connect with potential clients, engage in conversations, leave comments, create a network. And remember that when you're looking for a client at the same time is looking for you as a good lead generator, because lead generators are the core of business. Without new leads, and obviously without people who are busy with finding new leads, there will be no sales and there will be no profit. So businesses are always interested in good lead generators that will bring them new clients. And of course, they are looking for you. So it's always a mutual cooperation. So today's lesson, you will have a following task. Previously, you had to write a cold call script. So now your task is to practice that script. So find someone from your batch and call them to practice your script. So you should explain them the task that you're a lead generator that cold calling, and they are the client and they should react accordingly for their potential lead, not a client yet. And then you should tell them your script. It's always better if you manage to interact a little bit to understand how effective your script is. So, and in the end, write down your thoughts, like what was good about your script in your opinion? What specifically could be improved? Probably you will realize that there are some things that you can improve in the script. And again, all the details will be provided in a Google Classroom as usual. So thank you for your attention and see you on our Q&A session. Bye.